This is honestly like not one of my best moments right now. I was just crying. And I kind of felt like I have to talk about it because, first of all, I already did talk about it. A little lore about myself. I talked to myself. I talked to myself. Talking to myself. I hope I don't have problems with the camera lighting today. But talking to myself, honestly, is like one of the ways that I process my emotions, because I am a very, I don't like to say like I'm emotional, but the word isn't coming out right now. I'll get to it. But the way I emotionally regulate, because I feel like in certain ways I have to emotionally regulate myself pretty often, especially with things that I'm suppressing. Oh my God, that's another conversation, probably for today, but that's another thing too. Me and my emotional suppression when it comes down to certain things. And there's this constant thing that's been eating at me, and I'm going to cry, by the way, because I already did cry, and the tears are already forming in the bottom of my eyelids right now, so it's going to happen. It just is what it is. That's another way that I emotionally regulate, is through tears. Somatic therapy, anyone? Okay. But what was my point? I was basically saying how it's this reoccurring theme that I have been feeling surrounded around this one specific decision that I'm making, or about to make, or committed to making, which is also kind of crazy because, like, technically the way I also feel is like I technically ain't commit to nothing. I can change my mind at any time, but there's also this thing that's kind of holding me back, and that's what I'm about to get into in this video. Ooh, my voice is already cracking. You can hear it already. Let me also say that if my parents see this, I need to stop doing that. I'm so sorry, but I'm probably gonna do it throughout the video. But if my parents do see this, and you see your baby girl crying for, like, I don't know, the 1,000th time in her 25 years, like, for real, I just want to say that, like, I don't know what I want to say, actually, honestly. If y'all just see this, I don't know. I feel like there's probably going to be a conversation where I'm going to talk to y'all personally, but I can't right now. Like, I would love to, but I'm going to cry. And I'm not going to lie, I would rather cry on camera to a bunch of strangers and friends that subscribe to me than cry in front of y'all, because I've already done that. I've done that last year, the ending of last year. I like, give me some time to cry again. But if y'all see this, then yeah, okay. But it's this specific internal conflict that I'm having, surrounded around, like I said, basically we're going to say committing to this this task that I compromised on and said that I would commit to doing, and it's regarding being a firefighter. I'll just say that. I'm just gonna be real raw and be real honest in this video, I guess. And the lore behind that is that I grew up in a law enforcement family, for one, and my parents are also boomers, for two. But as a 25-year-old, life is happening. I'm getting older. I'm not getting younger. My parents are looking for me to be able to show more responsibility and more stability in my life as I'm becoming a young adult, which 100% understand. Like, that's like a must, a duh. But it's a challenge when you yourself are trying to pull away from what the people that you love most are telling you to do, when you know that your body and your soul and your spirit is telling you to go a different way. Oh, fudge. I think another big reason that I'm crying too, and what I also feel is like it's a misunderstanding when I try to express it sometimes. It kind of feels like, to me, it feels like when I express that this is the way I feel like misunderstood in some way. But basically, as a 25-year-old in this day and age, 2026, about to be 26, responsibilities are coming up, bills are coming up. No problem with that. I'm not gonna lie. I've always been a hard worker. If I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. That's one thing about me. If I put my mind to it, I'm going to do it. I can complete it. And that's one thing that I really do love about myself. But as I'm getting older, and I know that my parents have talked about this one specific like word that stands out the most, and it's stability. And they encourage me to take a job that will most likely promise me stability, but it does not feel right in my body. It doesn't feel right in my spirit. It doesn't feel right when I say it. Literally, I cringe when I tell people that I'm about to become a freaking firefighter intern. The fuck? Like, what? Like, what? You know what I mean? And I had a conversation with my parents a while ago surrounding that. For some of y'all who also don't know, is that I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I love content creation. I love, you see how I just started, I'm not gonna lie, I just got that on camera for real. But you see how I just said content creation and like my whole vibe just changed? Because like literally that shit lights me up inside. I love content creation. I love creative direction. I love educating. I love herbalism. I love fashion. I love creating. At the core, I feel like I'm a creator. And as I'm getting older, the more that I'm learning that about myself, there's that, and then this pressure of, people, parents, that are like, we think you should do this. This seems like this will be stable. Whatever you got going on is cool, but like, that don't really seem like that's gonna be like sufficient for you. But on my side, I'm like, well, like, nah, like this is actually the direction I gotta go. We see two different things, basically. And the reason why I'm crying about it so much is because there's also this thing where growing up in this household, I feel like I have been associated with the identity of being the good child. Being the child that listens, being the child that follows the rules, being the child that doesn't rebel, being the child that doesn't challenge. But as I'm getting older and I'm getting to know more about myself, it's becoming more prevalent that identity does not match up to who I actually am. And it actually doesn't match up to where I'm going either. That is what makes me feel really misunderstood when I have this type of conversation with my parents. I think in so many ways, my parents are really supportive. I love my parents. I love my parents now. They're really supportive, and they tell me that all the time. But it's more of an inner conflict with me when it comes down to having to strip away that identity, to strip away what I feel so comfortable doing. And especially also living in their house, that's another added pressure. Oh my, looks like my nose is dripping, y'all. So sorry. And I don't have any tissue or anything around me, but my hands will do. Sorry. Stripping away that good child identity is super hard. And especially when you're already in the same house as them as well, it's even harder. But I've also been telling myself that it doesn't make sense for me to not follow what's speaking the loudest to me. Especially being the type of person that I am, that for years I have always put work towards listening to my intuition, understanding myself more, listening to my own discernment, following my gut instincts, And it's a slow process sometimes. And I think that sometimes is what's scary about when I have this conversation with my parents specifically, is that like sometimes because certain instincts that I know, they may not match up to the time frame that stability needs to be here, that finances need to be here, that decisions need to be here. Even though on my end it's like, nah, like I'm straight. Like the decisions that I'm making are already like set in stone. Like the the stability, I know if I follow this trajectory, this alignment, this path, like I'm gonna be straight. Like everything's gonna come. But you have parents that are also really protective, and I think it's coming from a more protective standpoint. They don't want to see me struggle. Of course, I don't want to see myself struggle. They don't want to see me have to work a minimum wage 9 to 5 job. You know what I mean? But then it's like I'm opting in to be a firefighter. Like I'm opting in to do something that's so like rigid and, you know, mentally taxing, physically taxing, emotionally taxing, when that is not me. That is not me. That I don't think that's ever truly been my personality. And that's the thing that's trippy. And that is also the thing that makes me feel very misunderstood. Because it's like I feel like I'm almost sacrificing by making that decision. I feel like I'm almost sacrificing my own sense of self to be put into a box that seems like it's gonna work just because it worked for everybody else. And I'm not everybody else. So I often cry about it because I feel like right now I'm stripping away that identity, and it's not as easy as I thought. And it's even harder for me now because my parents and I actually had this conversation in December of 2025 where I told them that when we first talked about the idea of becoming a firefighter, going into some type of governmental public safety, you know, first, first to whatever. We had a conversation about it, and I knew even then that it was not something that I wanted to do. It's something that didn't sit right with me. It's something that just doesn't call to me. It doesn't align to me. We had that conversation, and I remember I actually did stand up for myself, and I told them that I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go back to school. Mind you, I graduated back in 2023 with my bachelor's, but I wanted to go back to school to go get my herbalism degree. Because as I stated before, one of my passions is herbalism. And I was like, I want to go, instead of me going to school there, I would rather go get my degree. How? Crazy. I've never taken out student loans. I went to college, but that was all paid for by my parents. I knew that I would have to save a whole bunch to put myself back to school. And that's something that is kind of uncomfortable when like the safety net kind of gets also ripped under you. You know what I mean? But I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I would rather do that. I was looking up all the stuff for the school. I was getting a little scared by the numbers, but I'm also like, betting on yourself, like, you got to do what you got to do, right? And we had that conversation. And I said that I'm not going to do the firefighting intern and do that whole firefighter academy thing. I'm going to choose me and go to school. Right in that moment, me and my parents had a conversation. They said that they were supportive, but they also did have their own opinions on me making that decision and how that may hinder me, which I took. It was a conversation, you know, just expressing ourselves. From that moment after, I felt like immediately after, I felt really relieved. I can't lie. I felt really relieved because I literally was like, I put myself first. Like I was very proud of myself that I put myself first, because it took a lot for me to say that. Not only that, but I also cried. I was crying. That's also really hard because I like 25, you still crying in front of your parents. I mean, ain't no really shame in my game, but sometimes it's just hard to articulate to my parents because once again, having that identity tied to you of being the kid that doesn't always express herself deeply to my parents all the time, more so expressing it to myself. As I said, I talk to myself. Expressing it to yourself, or expressing it to your friends, or expressing it to like other people that can understand me, And then also still having that challenge of like, how do I deliver this to my parents and not feel and not feel like guilty, not feel guilty for being the rebellious kid. Does that make sense? I felt so after that moment I felt really relieved. I felt really, really relieved. And as literally as just like a few days passed by, that became a different sense and a different feeling. I started to feel super uncomfortable with that talk that I just had. And it wasn't because I was uncomfortable with myself or that like the fear was so loud that like I was like, oh my God, like how am I going to do it? It was more like you just stripped away your safety net and your comfort zone, and you just stripped away your title of being the good kid. You just stripped that away from yourself. That felt so uncomfortable in that moment that the only thing that I felt like was going to get me out of that was compromising. So I literally told my parents, literally a few days after that conversation, I came back and I said, Dad, I said, you know what? I'll compromise. I'll go do the internship as the firefighter. I told them though that I was not or did not plan seeing myself committing to doing the full firefighter thing. Like if you trying to see me climb a ladder and fight fires, like I good luck on that one. But I'll compromise on the first half. I'll compromise on a portion of the journey. Having two jobs didn't seem that bad if I'm saving up for school. And to also relieve myself, self-soothe myself, quite literally, of all that guilt and uncomfortability and sense of detaching something that I've identified as for so long was so uncomfortable. I was like, I will compromise. And I can't lie though, as soon as I did that, it quite literally felt like a piece of me died. I can't even lie to you. Can't even lie to you, bro. But I literally was also like, what's the harm in trying? I'm an optimistic person like that too, where I tell myself, well, what's the harm in trying? Like, I know that firefighting does not seem like it's in my lifeline trajectory. But what's the harm in trying? And if I try and I don't like it, I can at least say that I tried. And that's another thing that I will say my parents raised me up on, was that you need to try stuff first and then make your decision. They specifically used to do that with food a lot. Like, if you came to my parents and be like, oh, I don't like broccoli, my parents would be like, have you tried broccoli? And if you'd be like, no, they'd be like, well, you're going to try it first, and then you're going to give me your decision. My parents was always like that. So I also grew up with that mindset too, where it was like, try and then make a decision. If you haven't tried it yet, you can't say you didn't like it or that it's not going to work or that you don't want to do it. Try first. So that became my mindset after that second conversation, where I decided to say that I'll go do the firefighting thing, paid internship for a few months. But like I said, I was like, now I was back to square one. It was a crazy feeling because part of me felt like I took a step forward, but was sitting in so much uncomfortability that I felt like the only way that I could soothe myself was to take that step back. But as soon as I took that step back, I was like, what in the hell did I just do? Like, Kira, I know you just didn't do this, girl. Are you serious? But after a little while, I didn't really hear anything back from the firefighting people. So I was kind of like chilling. Like, I will say that right after that conversation, I can't lie, the pedal to the metal, baby. My entrepreneurial journey with herbalism and content creation and creative direction, baby, full force. And it still is now. My momentum is immaculate. I put in that work because genuinely I was like, if y'all want me to do this firefighter thing, like, I gotta prove to y'all that, like, this is, like, because here's another thing. when I was talking to my dad that first time, my dad did admit that he was like, we don't know what you want to do. Like, you 25, what the fuck you oops, sorry. You're 25, but like, what are you doing? He didn't say that. He didn't say that word. But he was like, what do you want to do? Like, we don't even know what you want to do with your life. Like, you sitting at home working at a yoga studio, like making a minimum wage, like, you know, you building your little website or whatever, you doing your little herbs or whatever, but like, what do you want to do? And I have big dreams. I'm not gonna lie. But sometimes I don't share that with my parents because, like, as I said, sometimes I keep things to myself because I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to say certain stuff to them, and I also don't know how the person gonna like take it. So I just keep it to myself. But my dreams are big. Like, I know what I'm gonna do, but I know it take time. But at the same time, I kind of needed that push in the same sense for someone to be like, well, you should do this, for me to be like, I don't want to do it that bad. I'm finna literally lock in now. And I did. So I also do appreciate that lesson that I learned from that conversation. But back to what I was saying before that. Um, what was I saying before that? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Hold on. I had to pause it because I almost forgot what I had to say. But for that time right after that conversation, it wasn't a lot of communication that I was getting from the fire department. So I was chilling. I was putting in that work day in, day out, still putting in that work day in, day out. Website up, herbs sent, people buying. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, hell yeah. And I can't even lie to you, this is the most aligned and happy I feel with actually doing something. As I stated before in the video, when I put my mind to something that I actually enjoy, you don't have to worry about me and the work that I put in. No shade. And especially if I'm in my mode of building up my routine around it, and also make sure that my nervous system is regulated, though, because all three of those things really go hand in hand. If that's the type of mindset and energy that I'm in, baby, you don't have to worry about. You ain't gotta worry about me putting no type of, like, not slacking on my work. I'm gonna put that work in. But today, today, after all that time kind of went by for that month where I didn't hear anything from the fire academy people, I just got a text from the chief. It was like, hey, check your emails, fill out this information so we can start going forward with this firefighter job. And I can't lie, that's when the conversation started happening with myself, because my mind just kept going and going and going and going. I was like, bro, like, I have to vocalize this. And that internal conflict is just back again. There's this part of me that the internal conflict is on two sides. One side is, you said that you were going to try. You said that. And if you said that, you should at least still do it. And you should do it, because you are a person that keeps your word. But another part of me is also like, you know yourself, and you know exactly what you don't want in life. So why not make the decision to change it? If you want to say no, you can say no right now. Ain't nobody holding up to your head to tell you to not or to not want to do what you don't want to do. If you know what spirit is saying inside of you, you have the decision to change it. And those two things right now are colliding. They're colliding. And I do feel like part of me is leaning more towards, you said you were going to try, because I am a person that keeps my word. But there's also this side right here that's like, you have the right and the freedom to change your mind whenever you want to. That also is like, that's a next step for me. That is one of my next lessons and one of my next journey. Like, I already know it. I feel it. I feel it. I feel like this right now is a test. I don't think I'm passing it. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to pass it. I think I've already made the decision not to pass it because I'm deciding to try. But It's one of the lessons that I think that is coming up now and it will come back again. It has to, and I know it is because it's just one of the things that I'm gonna do. It's like in order for me to elevate, I'm gonna have to go through this again, and that is why really I started crying. I really started crying because that makes me feel deeply misunderstood, and I feel like if I try to explain that to my parents, I feel like they'll get what I'm saying, but they also are gonna be like, so. But I'm glad I talked that out. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of needed to talk that out. Cause baby, and I'm not gonna lie, another thing I'm a little scared about with me crying is I'm a little scared that I'm about to have a acne breakout. And I only say that because I know that when I get like this, and when there's an inner conflict, see, that's another part of the lesson right there. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's a part of that lesson right there. Is I know myself. I do, and I know my body. And when I have internal conflict, it starts to show up in my nervous system, and my nervous system starts to show it through my face and through my sleep and through my nutrition and like what I decide to eat and when I eat. Oh God. I don't want to break out. My skin was just clearing up, y'all. Oh my God. People at my coworkers at the job was like, "Oh my God, Carrie, like your skin is the best that I've ever seen." And I'm like, period. And then now I got that text. So yeah, man. um it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I do also feel like with me deciding to try, I have put my my um I put my action towards the schooling that I wanted to go to on like a slight pause. And that also is like, yikes, I can't do that. I can't do that. Because now the plan is kind of changing and I'm figuring out how to adjust to the plan. Because when the plan was me listening to myself, I had a good grip on what I know I wanted to do. But now that the plan is like doing something that I don't want to do, which sounds so crazy because like me saying it out loud, it's like the obvious answer is to listen to yourself because myself will never let me down. And that's another thing. My self-trust and self-discernment and gut will never let me down. I've literally proven that to myself so many times. But in this season of me having to understand how to strip away the identity that I've literally, my inner child still has, and how to also decenter my parents' ideas of me, it's so much harder than I thought. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be because I've already had lessons before this of like decentering. Like, for instance, I've decentered in my religion, right? My parents and my family are very Christian, and I completely what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, the word is gonna come to me. Not decenter. Deconstructed. Completely deconstructed religion, right? My opinions on certain things, they became different from my parents. I realized I didn't have to have the same opinions as my parents. I didn't have to have the same religion as my parents. I didn't have to have the same thought process as my parents. I didn't have to have this. I will say it was an extra boost for me being in college because when I was in college, I wasn't under the same roof as my parents. It was way easier for me to like be myself and do what I need to do and felt like was right. Being under their roof is like a little bit more pressure. Can't lie. But I've already had these like micro lessons that I've already passed on understanding myself more. And that's why when I'm getting right here, it's kind of like, you know the answer. You already know the answer. You don't have to go through this if you don't want to. Like, you know yourself way better. Your ancestors already told you exactly what the fuck to do. You just ain't listening with your little stubborn ass. But I also have my living ancestors here that I'm also like, I want to also honor them by listening to their advice, but I also know that their advice is not as fulfilling to me as they think it is and as I know it is. So it's like at the end of the day, I know exactly what I want to do or what I have to do, but I think I am kind of opting in to not do it because I'm opting in to try. And that's really difficult. And I just don't want my skin to break out because of that, because me crying already means that my nervous system is already out of whack just thinking about this shit. And I hate that for myself. I hate that for myself. God damn. So, I don't know. I'm gonna end the video here because now me thinking about that nervous system. God, oh my God, she was just doing so good. And you know why she was doing good? Because I was doing what I was supposed to do, listening to myself, making my content, doing my herbalism, being creative. And now we go into a whole rigid, emotionally, physically, mentally taxing, clock in, male dominated, uptight, drop down and give me 20 type of job. Oh my God. That's why I know it's not gonna work. That's why I know it's not gonna work, bro. And not saying that I'm not capable, because I'm capable of doing anything I put my mind to, but it's just not me, and it doesn't speak to me, and it also doesn't align to what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go, and also just who I am. Like, do they not know that, like, I love chilling? I love, like, riding the wave of, like, vibes and, like, you know, I don't know. I don't want to really be climbing ladders to fight fires and having to show up on car accident scenes and all this. Like, that is just not the vibe. But I guess I'll give you guys an update after all that stuff happens. I'm literally cringing thinking about it, which is a good enough answer to know exactly like what that's telling me and what that's signaling to my body and what that's signaling to my emotions and what's that signaling to my mental. But we shall see when that time comes. Just, guys, keep your fingers crossed that my face doesn't break out and that I just do enough meditation sessions and go to the gym enough that I counteract some of the stress. Okay? So thanks. Love you guys, and thank you for listening if you listened to this whole video. Jeez Louise.